all, it's James Johnson, aka Sulfur Blade, and I'm back here to revisit one of my old videos in order to do a new video. So this ought to be interesting. So what we're going to be looking at is a past video where I basically, this was after Joe Biden had given his great speech in 2020 that was so heralded by mainstream media that they couldn't stop talking about it, even though it was just him basically plagiarizing himself. It was the exact same speech that he gave the last time he ran for president in like 2008 or something. Anyway, Joe Biden has a history of plagiarism, lying, not really telling the truth, repeating the same things over and over again. That's just Joe Biden. That's who he is. He's a politician. He's the liar-in-chief, if you will. And let's look at that, shall we? Well, done wrong.
But this standard is not a measure of how we can evaluate the condition of our society. It cannot measure the health of our children, the quality of our education, the joy of their play.
Yet the gross national product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play.
Let us pledge that our generation of Americans will pay any price, bear any burden, accept any challenge, and meet any hardship to secure the blessings of prosperity and the promise of opportunity for our children.
We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
And I started thinking as I was coming over here, why is it that Joe Biden is the first in his family ever to go to a university?
Why am I the first Kinnick in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Glenys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
No, it's not because they weren't as smart. It's not because they didn't work as hard. It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
Does anybody really think that they didn't get what we had because they didn't have the talent or the strength or the endurance or the commitment? Of course not. It was because there was no platform upon which they could stand.
Alright. Now next is me doing some commentary let's skip ahead to 352.
Voice for this nation. Her story is the American story. That work is more than a paycheck. It's dignity. A job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's respect. It's about whether or not you can look your child in the eye and say, we're going to be all right. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. My dad who fell on hard times. You know, my dad was an honorable, decent man. He got knocked down a few times, pretty hard. Always told me, though, champ, when you get knocked down, get up. Get up. But he always got back up. He worked hard, and he built a great middle-class life for our family. And why he'll make college more affordable. That's the change we need. And where cost doesn't prevent young people from going to college, and student debt doesn't crush them. You get the...
Alright. So yeah, Joe Biden loves to repeat old narratives and use other people's stuff. Let's go ahead and look at an article that was published in October 12th, 2020. Joe Biden's campaign speech, Cincinnati Museum Center transcript, October 12th. In this particular paragraph, and I remember getting on a train, and a guy named Angelo Negrea, I got to know their families, all the conductors, and all the people all these years, and he came up to me and grabbed me and he said, Joey. He grabbed my cheek. I thought the Secret Service was going to shoot him, and I said, no. I said, he's okay. It's a true story. And he said, I just read Joey. 1,400,000 miles on Air Force Two. pretty big deal. The boys, we were checking. We had our retirement dinner. Went up to New Jersey for the dinner. You know how many miles you traveled on Amtrak? I said. Or I said no. Aang, I don't, he said. Joey, he said, we figured 117 days a year, 36 years, and then X number of days as vice president. You've traveled 2,100,000 miles on Amtrak. And that's, then Biden says, I think I hold the record, other than a conductor, for traveling miles on Amtrak. So, the truth in that statement is that he did travel to Congress, or to the Senate, well, Congress, Senate, the same building, same place, but he did travel to Washington via Amtrak. This is a true story. He put a lot of miles on Amtrak. Evidently, he liked to use Amtrak even when he was vice president. That is the truth therein in the issue. However, some of this stuff being said here doesn't hold up to scrutiny. For instance, this Angelo guy, he retired from Amtrak in 1993. 1993. So unless Joe Biden is using some sort of TARDIS technology, it's very hard to imagine that Joey grabbed him on the train by his cheek and almost got shot by his Secret Service staff when he was vice president some 12 years later. Now, it also says in here that they went to the retirement dinner. So maybe, just maybe, benefit of the doubt here, but you tend to not give people who cry wolf 3 times over any benefit of the doubt. Once they lie 3 times to you, you generally just consider them a liar. But if we're being extremely generous, maybe as he's referencing here, we had our retirement dinner. Maybe Amtrak has its retirement dinner for its conductors some 12 years after they quit working. In which case, maybe this Angelo guy happened to run into Biden while traveling on Amtrak after he's retired, after he had his retirement dinner, to figure out this statement and have this conversation with him. It's a lot of ifs. It's possible. Stranger things have happened. But read this, see how very how it's a narrative, right? You're reading a political narrative in this paragraph, and that's really what it is. It's a political narrative. It's a political story. It's a story meant for political gain. Now let's go ahead and see what Joe just said.
I said, no, he's a friend. He said, Joey, what's the big deal? 1,200,000, 300,000 miles on Air Force Two. You know how many miles you travel on Amtrak? I said, no, Ange, I don't know. And he gave me the calculation, and he said, you travel 1,515,000 miles on Amtrak. So the fact is, I probably take Ange's word before I took the word of what the article.
So there you go. So he's basically saying the exact same thing. He's telling the story. Now, there's stories, right? And some stories are based in truth. But often the best stories, the ones you remember the most and repeat verbatim over and over and over again, are the big fish stories, right? The ones where you're kind of stretching the truth. Has anyone ever told a big fish story? Has anyone ever told a big fish story more than once? There's something usually common about big fish stories, right? They tend to have a lot of the same information points that are repeated verbatim. Exactly the same a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later. They might get a little more colorful as the years go on. Like, maybe the fish grows in size, every 2 or 3 inches each year. But, the time it was, 12:52 off the dock, and it was foggy, and the wind was blowing, and I could smell this in the air. The whole the narrative painting usually tends to be the exact same thing over and over again. And that's what Biden's doing here. He's painting the same narrative over and over again. It's the same thing he does when he talks about his father and the other overused crap, the Scranton Joe lines, right? Where he's not even from Scranton, but yet he's Scranton Joe, and he keeps talking about Scranton like he's from there, because it's painting a political narrative. Anyway, just thought you would appreciate a little more information about another one of these, I guess, in the big scheme of things, the president lying about a conversation with some retired train conductor that he had 10, 15, 20 years ago is rather minor. This is the president of the United States. He's capable of doing a hell of a lot worse things than lying about how much he traveled on Amtrak. But this is an example. This is just an example of how much this guy lies. So there we have it. This is my video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If so, please hit that like button. And until the next time, all. Peace.